BlxckMonopoly presents Dope Dialogue.
What's good? You're now tuning in to Dope Dialogue presented by BlxckMonopoly. And today we have an entrepreneur, a CEO, a Web3 teacher, NFT producer, and the founder of an NFT studio, plus more. Without further ado, we have Iris Nevins. How's it going? How you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. It's a Friday. I love Fridays and I love Mondays too. But I'm looking forward to the weekend and kind of like uninterrupted time to focus on all the stuff I need to get done.
Got you. And just to make sure I didn't butcher your name, it's Iris, right? Not Iris or anything?
Yes, you got it.
Cool, smooth. So let's jump right into it. Hit the listeners with a little bit about where you're from and what makes you you.
That's a good question. What makes me me? I don't know if anybody's asked that yet. So I'm originally from South Florida. I grew up in Broward County, right next to Miami-Dade County. My parents are Jamaican immigrants. So I grew up in a very heavily Jamaican culture. There's also a lot of other Jamaican immigrants in the area that I lived in as well. And my dad owned Jamaican restaurants. So that was a big part of my life. What makes me me? Where should I start? Help me out.
It's pretty tough. Let's say I would say a little bit of you growing up in Broward County, and also the experiences that you experienced growing up to this point. Like what makes, if you could define it, I know it's a tough question, but what are the ingredients and experiences that make you today, who you are today?
Yeah. So I think my parents have a lot to do with my story. I think there was a really interesting mix that I got from both of them because my dad was a coach. He was a track coach. And so he had me running track at 7 years old. So I ran from 7 to 16. And I ran at a very high competitive level. So I started going to the Junior Olympics at a very young age and performing at a high level. But I didn't like track. To me, it wasn't very fun. I love sports. I love games. So I'm more of like a soccer, basketball type of person. Track for me was just pure pain, no fun, pure pain, pure kind of mental effort. And I didn't enjoy it, but I had no choice but to do this sport. And so that was a big part of my life. My life was also very structured. My parents were very strict. So it was school, sports, and then homework and chores. And so I was a top performing student as well. I think that what I learned from my dad was grit and hard work and how to push through pain and difficulty to get something done. And from my mom, she's an academic, she's very organized, she's an administrator. So I think I got that kind of being organizational, strategic, planning, scheming, type of personality from her. And I think both of them together, both of those things together have been really helpful for being a businesswoman or a business leader. I ended up leaving home at 16 to go to this boarding school called the United World College. This was my attempt to get away from track and field. So I got accepted into this program on a scholarship where they put kids from all over the world in rural New Mexico, and you go to school together for 2 years. And so I think that was a pivotal moment for me in making me hyper aware of the world and how many cultures are out there and religions and politics. And, there's just so much more to this world than the little Florida where I grew up, or even Jamaica, which I was familiar with, but I didn't understand, conflicts in the Middle East. And, I didn't really understand what people were like who were from Africa, right? And some of these other parts of the world. So that was I think that also played a big role in me becoming more political in terms of my my ambitions and wanting to have an impact on the world in like a kind of political way.
Got you. Smooth. That's a good answer right there. It's like you got the grit, the go hard, you got the organization skills, and you also got the world experience of understanding people and getting to change your perspective. Yes. And you launched Umba Daima, an NFT studio for Black artists, and it generated 140K in 10 months. Can you give more detail about what Umba Daima is and how the company was born?
Sure. So we originally launched Umba Daima in 2020 as an e-commerce store, and the goal was to help Black and African artists sell their work online. So we were working mainly with painters and also digital artists, like photographers and collage artists. And so we set up a print shop, and we also helped some of the painters kind of, format their original work for prints. And then shortly after we launched the e-commerce store, we started learning about NFTs. And so, it just kind of made sense very quickly to me, because we were trying to build a name and an audience for ourselves in an industry. You're talking about e-commerce, right? In an industry where we're way behind everybody else, and all the great like domains and Instagram pages and like property online is already taken. So when I started learning about NFTs, this was November of 2020, I noticed that artists still needed help in this space. So we could still help artists, but it was such a new industry. Everything was up for grabs, right? Black NFT art was still available on Instagram and Twitter, right? It was just so new. So I figured that we could probably accomplish a lot more in less time with less money if we go into this new industry and try and dominate there versus this old industry. So we ended up pivoting. When we pivoted into NFTs, we didn't know exactly what the long-term game was. And I think anybody who comes into NFTs and knows right away exactly what they're going to do for the next 20 years is probably is not being realistic, right? Like there's a lot of testing and experimenting that needs to be done. One, because I think in general, that's just how businesses work, right? You kind of test and experiment until you find the thing that works. But also it's such a new industry and things are changing all the time, right? The market goes up and down. I've seen ETH in NFTs go from 1,500 to 4,000, 4,800, back down to 2,000, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that are constantly changing. So during that first year, we did a lot of testing. And, I can go into that. I don't know if you want to pause or anything before I go into that. But yeah.
Cool. Could you give like a quick little dive into that? Like I understand it's probably pretty complicated, and I just want to get an idea of what it looks like to experiment and test things in the NFT space.
Yes, absolutely. So the first thing that we did was try and figure out what the problems were, right? So we spent about 2 or 3 months just listening in our Clubhouse and paying attention and seeing like what are the issues and what's something that we could potentially solve. We noticed that the artists that were having a lot of success were, of course, primarily white men, but they also had a strong community around them. They had people who were engaging them on social media, promoting them, reposting, retweeting, and then, the highest level of support is really buying someone's art. And so we didn't really see that for Black artists. And we also couldn't really find Black artists at all. So we decided to create Black NFT art originally as literally just social media pages to help promote and amplify Black artists, so that anybody who wanted to find Black artists could easily find them, and also so that those Black artists could get more eyes and more visibility to their work. So we launched the social media pages, and we started doing online events on Clubhouse 4 to 5 days a week, and to start building that community and helping building those relationships and building this like network of Black people and NFTs. We also ended up being asked to manage an artist. He was looking for a manager, and that wasn't our plan originally, but we said, okay, let's try it. So we managed him for 4 months. We helped him become a 6-figure artist in the NFT space. And then we also even though that was a great experience, we also wanted to see how we could support a larger number of artists at the same time. So we did an incubator program over the summer. We took 15 artists, we put them through 3 months of workshops, projects, like public speaking assignments, a whole bunch of stuff. And then at the end, we did a big show. And a number of the artists who participated in that program are also now 6-figure artists in the NFT space. So, that's what I mean by testing, just trying stuff out and seeing how it works. And, we're more clear on the vision now, but we are still testing.
Got you. So many people don't see the true value in NFT art. To some people, it's just a JPEG and, just digital things that people could just save to their computer and say they own. What's the value in NFTs, and how do you see the value growing over time?
So I think if you value art, right? If you value creativity, creation, then NFTs should make sense. Okay. If I feel like the people who don't get NFTs are oftentimes the people who have never, who don't care to spend money on art. Like they don't believe that art is valuable enough to spend money on, right? So I think that's one thing that a lot of people kind of need to understand, is that there are people that think art is really, really valuable, okay? What's powerful about NFTs is that for a long time, creators had a really hard time monetizing their creations, especially if their creations are digital, right? If what you're creating is physical, like a painting or a sculpture, it's still hard to monetize it, but it's easier because it's a physical item, right? You can't really make a copy of it that easily. But if it's a song, if it's an animation, if it's a graphic, design, if it's a photograph, it's really easy to make copies of it. And so it was hard for these types of artists to monetize their art, even though their art is just as good and requires just as much skills as someone who paints or sculpts. So what NFTs do is it's a technology that has created a way to create an original piece. Yes, you can have 1,000 copies, but you can also say that this one copy is the original authentic piece. Just like you can have a painting and there's 100 photographs of the painting, but there's still that original painting. So that's really kind of the power of NFTs, allowing you to create that original authentic piece. It's the signature is on the blockchain forever, right? For people who don't understand the blockchain is literally just, in simple terms, a list of transactions, okay? It's a list of transactions, and it's public and it's immutable, which means it cannot be destroyed, and it's there forever. So once you create an NFT, that transaction is there on the blockchain forever, and it will have information about who created it, the date, the time, etc. So you always know which one is the original authentic one. The other great thing about NFTs is that they are smart, because you're talking about software. So they're created using something called smart contracts, which is just software code that can execute on instructions or rules. And the rule that is the most exciting is this royalty rule that says every single time that the NFT is sold, the original creator gets a percentage of the sale. And what's cool about that is that one, it can be, if it's multiple creators, then you could have the creators split the royalty, but also you could set it up so that part of that royalty goes to an organization. So maybe you say every single time I get a royalty as an artist, I want to send 10% of that royalty to some nonprofit or a school or whatever. You know, it's just a really kind of efficient and effective way for tracking all of these sales, receiving payment, and distributing payment to wherever you want to distribute it to. So it's the tech that matters. And I feel like people are so kind of caught up on the drama and are not paying to the fact that you're talking about revolutionary technology. Just like the internet was revolutionary technology, this shit is going to change the world.
For sure. I think a lot of people do just look at crypto and NFTs as just money, but it's technology. And also, it was great that you broke down blockchain and smart contracts, because I was going to ask about that later, but you just tackled that right there. And I think also a lot of people don't realize that it's still super early, and NFTs are going to have their place in the physical world, the metaverse, to where, you know, this digital art will become something that's low-key physical in this digital world, where you can see people, you know, hang up these art pieces in their place or actually experience these art pieces in the metaverse.
Absolutely. I mean, so, you know, the beauty of the digital world is that there's less limitations, right? In the physical world, you got all these parameters and guidelines and rules. Even let's say in your house, you can only store so much art in one house, right? But if you have a virtual house or a virtual gallery, you could potentially have that virtual space get bigger and bigger and bigger over time as your art collection gets bigger and bigger. And so, you know, there's two ways that you can display digital art. One is through a virtual gallery, like I mentioned, and there are a number of platforms that allow you to do that. My company has our own virtual gallery that we got custom built, that we can run shows out of, and people can go and they can walk around, they can look at art, they can click on it, they can go to the page to buy it, right? It's really cool. So you're talking about virtual institutions, virtual museums. But then the other cool thing is that you now have screens that you can buy and you can put on your wall to display your digital art as well. And the screens are becoming better and better and better. They're becoming smarter and sleeker. They're different from televisions because televisions use a lot of energy. And so you don't want to have a television running 24/7, right? But these screens, specialized screens, are optimized to be able to run on low energy 24/7, 365 days a year. And you can also customize them as well, depending on who you buy it from. So you're talking about, I can buy this digital art. It could be an animation, and I can have a moving animation in my house or my business or wherever on the walls. And it's there forever. This is the power of technology.
That's pretty dope for sure. I also read that you're excited to see the progression of NFTs into other spaces of art like film, music, and dance. How can those things be NFTs?
Yeah, so it's a good question. People will continue to innovate, right? So I think that what we're seeing now will always kind of evolve and transform. But if we start with, what were the three? You said film?
Film, music, and dance.
Okay. So for film, there's the basic, the basic kind of, what do you call it? Practice of just minting the film as an NFT and just selling the film as an NFT. There's that, right? But what you can also do is take pieces from that film or kind of supplementing material. So like behind the scenes footage, for example, or special art that was made, you know, for the film, or maybe something from the set, right? You can take components from the film and turn that into NFTs. You can also create NFTs that are like membership or utility-based NFTs that give access, special access to something related to the film. So maybe special access to screenings or to like a special like, you know, extended DVD, or, you know, because NFTs can also be used for as like a membership token as well. For music, same thing. You can sell the music as an NFT, or you can sell, you know, music videos, photography, stuff that's like related to the music. And you can also you can sell NFTs that give people access to the musician, maybe, you know, maybe lifetime access to like their concerts or something like that. You know, there's really a lot that can be done. And then with dance, you know, we're just starting to see kind of performance arts coming into the NFT space. So for anybody who does performance art, there's a lot of opportunity here to come in and really kind of dominate, because no one is dominating when it comes to performance art. And I personally, I love dancers. I consider myself a retired dancer. And I follow a lot of dancers on Instagram, and you know, they create the most amazing masterpieces and they put them on YouTube for people to watch. And I am dying for them to start minting them as NFTs and selling them, because I know they will make so much money. And if any of you are out there, please reach out to me, because I would love to work with you. Yeah, so I think, you know, again, taking performance pieces and minting them as NFTs is one thing, but then there's also, again, access that you can give as well.
Got you. And real quick, what is minting for people who don't know?
Yes. So mint it literally means to create the NFT. So technically what you do is you would upload your file, whether it's a JPEG or a video file, you upload it to a platform that allows you to then turn it into the NFT. So that turning into process is called minting. And then after that, you have to list it for sale. So you have minting and then you have listing. Got you.
And from your CNBC article, I learned that you don't directly benefit from the company yet. What keeps you motivated to continue building this platform for Black artists?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, you know, last year, again, it was a lot of testing. So we weren't hyper focused on revenue. We started focusing on revenue more and more as the year went on. So that 140,000 that we made last year, the majority of it was earned from July to December in 6 months or less. And, you know, we spent most of that money on paying our team and so forth. This year now, I am on a very, 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 very small salary. You know, I'm a former engineering manager. So you're talking about coming from a very well-paid career to, you know, less than a quarter of what I was getting paid. But for me, I'm focused on the vision. I think what we're building is going to be extremely powerful. I think it's going to be extremely lucrative. I expect to become a multimillionaire off of this business, and to also create a lot of multimillionaires in the process as well. And I think, you know, I think that the real problem that we have an opportunity to solve here, and I don't know for sure if we'll be able to do it, but I think we can, is to address income and wealth inequality. Okay, you know, around the world, you have massive wealth inequality, and this wealth inequality has existed for a long time. You have wealth inequality within countries like the United States, as much as people think that we're like the most amazing country in the world, we have some of the highest levels of wealth inequality in the world. And it's directly correlated to political instability. When there's such a gap between the rich and the poor, that is the perfect recipe for conflict, okay? And then you also have around, just between countries around the world, massive wealth inequality. What are the key factors of wealth? It's money, land, resources, right? Ownership of industry, okay? Physical property, you're talking about like gas, right? Natural resources, metals, trees, water, right? The people that own these things, those are the wealthy. And they are also able to control the political systems that influence everybody else's lives, right? So if you're poor, not only are you poor, but you don't even really have the means to influence the society that you live in, right? But what most poor, middle class, non-rich people around the world do have is intellectual property, right? We have culture, we have music, we have dance, we have fashion, we have designs, right? This is all intellectual property, which we know is highly valuable because you got the music industry, you got the film industry, right? Like we know that intellectual property is very valuable. We just haven't for a long time had the means to monetize it. And so what happens is the wealthy, they take the intellectual property from everyone else and monetize it for themselves, right? That's exactly what has happened to African Americans in the United States. You know, everything that's great about American popular culture, music, dance, fashion, all of that, the majority of it comes from African American and brown communities, but we don't own none of that shit, right? So I think so for us, we think that if we can build this massive network of people who are coming together to figure out how this space works and collaborating to help each other be successful in this space, then we can essentially acquire enough wealth and power to start closing the wealth gap in a significant way. And so that's what keeps me motivated and excited. And I wake up every day and I grind Monday through Sunday and I fucking love it.
Smooth. That was a dope answer. And that also tackled another question of I had that was centered around the importance of Black people getting into crypto and blockchain and understanding NFTs and everything. And that was a great way to break it down.
Thank you.
No, for sure. I'll probably have a couple more questions, maybe one more. But although the information is readily available online, most people still don't understand how blockchain and crypto and NFTs work. You already broke down blockchain and NFTs. Can you break down what crypto is as a whole?
Yes. So, okay. I'm not an expert, right? So when it comes to the real kind of minute technical details, I'm not quite there yet. Although one of my goals for this year is to figure it out because I want to know. But my understanding is that the blockchain on the most basic level, right, is literally just a record of transactions. It's a record of information, okay? And then you have the way that these records are stored is through tokens, okay? So the tokens have this information on them, and every time the token is involved in a transaction, the transaction is stored on the blockchain, okay? So with tokens, you have different types of tokens, and there's two main types. You have fungible tokens and you have non-fungible tokens. So a fungible token is one where every single token is the same. Every token has the same value, just like every $20 bill has the same value, right? So that is your Bitcoin, your ETH, your Dogecoin, right? Then you have non-fungible tokens, which is where every single token is unique. So no one token is the same. They each have their own unique digital signature. They're not interchangeable one for another. And so that's why non-fungible tokens are better for for property, because you're tying it to something that has a unique identity and value. So what's interesting is that, in this world, what people are doing is they're using fungible tokens to buy non-fungible tokens. So you use ETH to buy NFTs, and NFTs and ETH most NFTs are actually built on Ethereum. So Ethereum is just a type of blockchain technology, right? Bitcoin also has its own blockchain technology. You have Polygon. So you have these different chains, and then each chain has its own token. And then you have different types of tokens on each chain, if that makes sense. So what's cool about NFTs is that for non-fungible tokens, you're talking about unique property, right? And then for fungible tokens, you're talking about currency. Okay, and we all know that currency is how you make an economy work, right? Every single country has a currency. And so the power of cryptocurrency, in my opinion, is that now you can have these economies that are outside of the traditional economy. So we could technically go and find 20,000 other people and say, we're going to create this fungible token and we're going to trade it amongst ourselves, and we're just going to create our own economy that's separate from, the other economies that we are kind of like forced to live within, which gives you a certain level of power, ownership, control, influence, etc., than you have with like the US dollar, for example.
Good. That's a dope explanation right there for sure. I wish we had more time to go deeper. One more question. What is Web3?
That's a good question. I'm still figuring out how to explain Web3 because I feel like everybody has a different way of explaining it. So, I feel like there really is no one explanation for Web3. Every person that you ask is going to say a different thing. Some people think it's the age of like decentralization. Some people think it's the age of ownership. It runs the gamut, but I would say it's just the next age of the internet. And it's the age in which blockchain technology is going to dominate. And the power of blockchain technology is that it allows users on the internet to create and control their own data. So before it was like you create your data, but it's owned by Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, and they are using your data to make money. But in Web3, particularly because of blockchain technology and the power that it has to store data on it, you can now actually create, own and monetize your own data, which also includes, art and your creativity and things like that. So that's how I would explain it. Some people would say it's more to it than that. It's like the age of decentralization. I think decentralization is a pipe dream. I think people are I think decentralization is never going to be a real thing, not in the way that people want it to be, or some people want it to be. But, that's the conversation for another day.
For sure. You dropped plenty of gems in this one. Before we skate out, what's a piece of advice you give to anybody listening, regardless of, age, gender, creed, where they're from? What's one valuable, word of advice you would leave for anybody?
In regards to NFTs?
Just life in general, like everything.
In general?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say figure out what your purpose is. Figure out what the thing is that makes you feel like you wake up every day knowing why you are here. And it doesn't have to be something that is like, you know, placed on you by somebody else. You can decide for yourself what your purpose is and why you're on this earth and what you want to accomplish. And it doesn't have to be what other people want to accomplish. Like, you don't have to be some, you know, famous like business leader or the next Jeff Bezos or whatever. It could be that your purpose is your family. You know, it could be that your purpose is your community. It could be your purpose is your children, you know, like, but I think as long as you figure out what that purpose is and it feels good to you, I think that completely changes our relationships with ourselves and with life, because life is hard. It's like life is hard as fuck. And I know life is hard for me, and I'm still relatively privileged compared to a lot of other people. I know that the thing that keeps me going is having a sense of purpose. And that has been the case for the last, you know, maybe like 15, not 15. That has been the case for the last, I would say, you know, 8 or 9 years, is I've been very driven by purpose. And so people look at me and they're like, how have you accomplished the things that you've accomplished, right? And a lot of it comes down to just knowing my purpose and waking up every single day on a mission.
Got you. Cool. So hit people with where to find you and anything else you want to link people to.
Yes. So you can find me on socials at cosmosiris. That's my username on pretty much all platforms. You can also find Umba Daima at our website. I'm sure you'll put the URL in the caption. So umbadaima.com. You can also find blacknftart.co. That's our Black NFT art website. You can find Black NFT art on all platforms as well, except probably TikTok. Go to our website, check us out. We're still building the website out. We just launched a new site and we're continuing to iterate on it. But it does, I think, a decent breakdown of all of the different things that we are working on. And I would say if you want to get into NFTs, I highly recommend joining our community. Our community is small and tight knit, but we're growing steadily, consistently. People are consistently building relationships with each other, getting to know each other, collaborating on different things. And I believe that in the next 5 to 10 years, our community is going to be a massive global network. And so I think now is a really good time to get in, contribute, help out, build those relationships. And as you're doing all of that, you'll start to figure out what you want to accomplish in the NFT space. I do not rush into it. Do not have some massive dream and you've never even attended an NFT event before. You need to come in and meet people, get acquainted, become a part of the ecosystem, and then start to strategize on what your long-term role is going to be. And I think we provide a great environment to do that.
Got you. Definitely appreciate you being present, giving a ton of value, and just being yourself for sure. With that, dope dialogue, BlxckMonopoly, we out. Hold on, let me stop the recording. Okay, cool.